Hello again. We've got a special question for you today. Who is Gabby Franco, and why should we listen to her at the 2A Day? She's our featured speaker. Hello again. Gabby Franco is with us today, and we'd like to ask you what's happening in Israel and why does firearms ownership matter?
Well, definitely what's happening in Israel is terrible. Being attacked by terrorists, slaughtering their families, children, mothers, grandmothers is terrible. But that, I think, out of many other things that we can talk about, I think one aspect is the importance to be able to protect yourself with having the right tools to do so. As we saw, the slaughter, unfortunately, many, the vast majority of them seem to be unarmed. They didn't have the right means to protect themselves. That if you think about how different would have story would have been if they had the right means, they had firearms. It's definitely a sad situation.
It is for everybody out there that may not know, or some that may not know. We're visiting with Gabby Franco, Olympic athlete, competitive shooter, born and raised in Venezuela, immigrated here, has done some great work. We're going to have her out to address everybody at 2A Day at the Capitol in Iowa, or at the Iowa Capitol, rather, on January 18th, and then that evening for a more intimate gathering and a PAC fundraiser supper. So the fact of the matter is, Gabby's traveled a long way and she's been around the block a little bit, and she's seen firsthand what it's like to live in a country where there is no Second Amendment versus one where there is, and it's celebrated. So let's talk about that for just a little bit. And you mentioned it earlier. It's what would have happened if some of these people would have had access to something that they could defend themselves with. And now we've seen Israel and other places opening things wide up and saying, please pick up a firearm, please arm yourself, please defend yourself. That's a very big change from what it was just a very short time ago. And are these universal truths, Gabby? I mean, is that what we're touching on here or not?
I think, I mean, in sense, when we think about, often we, or this, the media, politicians focus only on the firearm itself, and they separate the most important aspect, which is intention. Okay, what separates a criminal from an athlete, like a competitive shooter? We have different intentions. One is intended to do harm, to hurt, to kill, while the other one is intended to learn, to appreciate, to practice a discipline. So once we cannot, unfortunately, legislate intention, and the only thing that you can fight that with is having the right means to do so. So I think it is a universal thing, because there is bad people out there willing to do everything they can if they have this wicked mindset to hurt other people. So yeah, for sure.
Well, as I look down through this and I'm considering what you're saying, this is an issue of the heart. And if the anti-gunners and the folks who are not pro Second Amendment are right, then that means that we're all knuckle draggers. That means that we're all inherently bad people, and we're going to eventually do bad things. And frankly, I reject that on premise. I had a conversation not very long ago, and I'll share this with you because I'd like to hear your thoughts. We'll make it brief, okay? I had a person ask me, well, when you carry a gun, do you find yourself in poor situations, and does that make you more prepared for them? And I said, well, of course, I think that logically I'm more prepared, but the truth is because I carry a gun, I find myself in fewer and fewer situations, and the reason why is every single conflict that I might be in is an armed conflict. And that's a really, really big deal. So people like me that think the way that I do, that practice and prepare the way that I do, we avoid problems. I mean, when I see scuffles
Sure.
that look like they're emerging or things about to happen, I exit. I get the wife, I get the kids, and say, it's time for us to go, and off we go. So by virtue of carrying a firearm, having some defensive mindset, and employing that, I'm the easiest guy to get along with you'll ever meet, because I don't need or want a conflict. And it changes you. As you know, Gabby, it changes how you think by virtue of this responsibility. And so it's like
It
the
is.
folks on the other side of this argument just can't understand that. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, it comes down to education. They are not educated in that aspect. They don't even probably have gone through that process. They probably don't carry firearms. So how would they know? How would they understand that us as parents, I do want to have, as a mother, I want to have the means to protect my child, to protect myself, to protect my family. And at the same time, understanding that that right that I have comes with a huge responsibility, which is what the vast majority of people and gun owners follow. If it were in that case, oh my goodness, this would be crazy considering the amount of firearms they are in this country. And that's exactly what is happening here, where the vast majority of gun owners are responsible gun owners. The rest are criminals who, no matter what you're going to do, they're going to do their create in havoc, because that's what their intention.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that, actually it's kind of terrible to note, but the truth is you see the occasional article on the news or wherever else talking about somebody using a gun in a as a miscreant or a bad actor, right? What you never hear about, it's almost never, is how a firearm was used to stop a crime or create a scenario where the bad didn't develop. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we don't report on that. We don't offer that. In fact, it rarely even gets discussed at all. And I don't think that people truly grasp how many crimes are either stopped wholesale or diminished because somebody had a defensive tool that was able to say, no, the calamity stops. These bad actors stop what they're doing. If you were in Israel, bayoneting babies would cease. Mothers
Right.
would stop being raped. People would stop being beheaded by people who are in the neighborhood doing those things house to house. And all it takes is a defensive tool, a defensive mindset, some practice, some basics in order to defend yourself. And I wish that for everybody. And I wish that everybody had a Second Amendment, a right to keep and bear arms that was recognized everywhere rather than just places like the United States. And even in the United States, as you know, it's not the same state to state. We need to work on that.
And it's unfortunate that it only generally happens when something bad happens.
Oh yeah.
That like what happened right now, that everybody's like, oh my God, we actually need this. Think about what happened during the pandemic. How Californians out of all people were going out to gun shops to get firearms because of the amount of crime and craziness that was going around there. Suddenly they realized, oh yes, this is a right I need right now, and how hard it was even for them to exercise their rights. And so unfortunately, it's like they say, people don't understand what they have until they lose it, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened to me. In a way, I didn't know what I was missing until I found it here in the United States.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. I often wonder if the California is a perfectly good example. Do they really did they lose sight of it and they needed to regain it, or maybe they didn't ever look at it this way to begin with? And I wonder now. For a long time I thought, well, they just lost sight of it. Now I'm beginning to wonder if it is a case where they believe something that's inherently not true, and they have for a long time, and then something bad happens and wakes them up, and they're saying, man, I can't defend myself. These bad things are happening to everyone around me, and it'll be me soon enough. And I don't
I
want that to happen.
I actually think my thought is a little bit more complex, in the sense that these individuals who wants to change the country, wants to change, almost like they do a paradigm shift, okay? And so they create a paradigm shift in California, I believe, because California was not like that all the time. There were gun owners and people celebrate the Second Amendment. So what they do, they make it difficult. And as years pass, generations pass, and now this new generation, the older generation goes, the new generation are raised with a different paradigm, different mindset, different beliefs. And so that's the danger with letting everything go. Oh, that's okay. Oh, they put taxes on ammunition. That's okay. That doesn't hurt me too much. Oh, now they take the ability for me to own this firearm, but I have this one. That's okay. And that's when the problems begin, because then what they do, they create this chokehold until the newer generation won't have the same experiences, the same rights that you and I enjoy. And that's what we all need to get together, so our children, our grandchildren can continue enjoying the America that we love and enjoy today.
Amen. That's a mouthful. You're right about that. As I was thinking about what you were saying, generation or generational circumstance or learned behavior, whatever we want to call it, is rightly applied by what you're saying, because I'm not 50 yet, rapidly approaching, but not 50 yet. When I was a pup, I can remember listening to my granddaddy mention about the use of firearms and carrying whatever else, and there was no such thing as a permit. And then fast forward the next generation, my dad reminded me, oh yeah, permits. I had one or have one, and it's not hard to get, such and such sheriff, right? And then you fast forward to me, and I was like, well, there were permits, but my sheriff wouldn't issue me one, which is why I got involved with advocacy on the Second Amendment to begin with, is because for 6 years I asked my sheriff on my birthday or my birthday week if I could get a permit, and every year I was told to go pound sand, and he wouldn't even let me, his staff wouldn't even let us fill out the application. So in just a few generations, it went from my granddaddy having a gun, not having to worry about it, to my dad having one with a permit, to me being not able to get the permit. Now, fast forward to my children's generation, and we have made May issue in Iowa very simple and very concrete, and you can carry on a constitutional basis. So it's almost like we're back to where my granddaddy was, except there's a lot more emphasis on responsibility handling. So my friends in California that are doing well, that's great. But for the rest of them who are not, you can get there. You're right, Gabby, and this is a generational shift, but it doesn't mean that it ends. They can get back to where they need to be if they're involved, if they do the kind of things that you're doing.
It is. And to give you a little bit unrelated example, my brother is 32 years old, and he was 7-year-old when Hugo Chavez got in power. He does not remember what it was to have in Venezuela a full grocery store. It only took 20 plus years for that to happen. And so it happens rather quickly when you see in the realm of things in a century how rapid things happen. And so it's very essential that people understand this, because it's not about what I experience right now, but what my son and my grandchildren will be able to experience in the future.
Yes. So you would say that life is very hard in Venezuela right now?
Oh, right. Life is very rough right now, for sure.
Well, let's not let that happen here, and let's hope and pray that that Venezuela can get back to where they need to be. How about that?
We can only hope, for sure.
Okay.
We can only hope. Unfortunately, leadership, and there's no leadership. Let's put it that way.
Well, what we need is engagement. We need people to stand up for what they believe is right. And we also need people to listen and think. One of the things, I have no doubt that the folks in California that I believe are running it in the ground, they probably do think that they're doing what they need to do. But the reality is, and the logic don't support any of that. So we need people to listen and to pay a close attention to what's going on around them as we advocate. I will sit down with people who oppose me routinely and listen to them. And every now and then they'll say something that surprises me, usually not. But if they were, I will give them the opportunity to persuade me, is what I should say. And I don't think very many folks on the other side of the argument you and I have are willing to sit down and listen, because I think that what they would see is that we're loving, kind people, and we don't wish for calamity and problems. But if they start, we're willing, at least wanting, to have the option to stop them. And I think that it's no more complex than that. So as that pertains to Israel, as that to pertain to where you grew up versus where you are now, it's a snapshot that we should be looking at. Gabby, is there anything that we should say in parting before we go that emphasizes the need for a Second Amendment and its and it's practice?
Well, I think the first thing that going to what you were talking about, conversation, that this is a Second Amendment for all. This is not just for the gun owners. This is even for the one who doesn't like guns, but in the future needs it, even if they don't know it. This is about keeping ourselves as a community together. I've seen in Venezuela how the population, for differences of ideas, it's imploded. I think there's a time where we can help others educate, even if that takes more time. So this is time to continue fighting for our rights, but understanding and being aware that it's even for those anti-gun people.
Fantastic. All right. So thank you for your willingness to come on today and visit with us about current events and what we have going. And thank you in advance for your willingness to come out here on January 18th and be up at the Iowa Capitol in the morning for our, again, we're going to change it to a morning program and people can listen to your address there. And then that evening at a more intimate gathering with a PAC fundraiser. And you can find all those things at iowafc.org under the I think it's the Take Action tab. There's a group of events. You can go see that, buy your tickets there for the evening program and the steak supper if you like. So Gabby Franco, Olympic athlete, competitive shooter and trainer, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And appreciate everybody out there. Thank you.
Thank you.